Hello, everyone. Welcome to my Bitcoin story. And we have our first female guest, Nozomi Hayase. So, Nozomi is a trained liberation psychologist. She's deeply steeped in the traditional of depth of psychology, hermeneutics, and phenomenology. And then she fell down to Bitcoin rabbit hole and found the path of for self-liberation. So welcome to the show, Nozomi.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So maybe we can start by you telling us your Bitcoin story. Like, how did you end up
Yeah.
going to Bitcoin rabbit hole?
Yeah. So I first found out about Bitcoin at the end of 2010, December 2010, when WikiLeaks, the organization WikiLeaks, whistleblowing site, was faced with the financial blockade by private companies such as PayPal, Visa, and MasterCard. And WikiLeaks, and then Julian Assange, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, in 2011, he decided to use Bitcoin to circumvent the financial blockade. And so that's how I actually initially became aware of Bitcoin. And it was very kind of mind-blowing for me to recognize that, first of all, what our financial system has become and how it actually censored anyone that they don't like. The U.S. government could signal just the pressure or the payment processing companies to shut down any organization that they don't like, and then how Bitcoin was used so gracefully to circumvent this blockade. So that's how I first found out about Bitcoin. And then Julian Assange, he talks about Bitcoin, and then as a matter of fact, WikiLeaks was backed by Bitcoin's underlying technology, the blockchain. The WikiLeaks uses to create the proof of existence of documents. So Bitcoin's underlying technology, the blockchain, is basically decentralized timestamp, and so that kind of made me realize the significance of this technology that goes beyond the financial, just changing the financial system. And I, and then I found about cypherpunks and who are behind the creation of this technology, and then recognized that the Bitcoin to be basically it's the movement toward movement for free internet. So I've been very much engaged in this efforts to have a free internet, and then now I started to see how Bitcoin would take on that kind of battle in a way that is doesn't make us suffer. What I mean? Doesn't make us just fight and lose, but in a graceful way. But then my journey really has gone deeper in 2013 when I came across this essay written by Nick Szabo, the cryptographer and legal scholar who is very recognized notable figure in Bitcoin ecosystem, of course, and everybody watching this probably knows who he is. But so he invented Big Gold, which is the precursor to Bitcoin. So he wrote an essay in 2002, the Sharing Out the Origin of Money. And in that article, essay, he basically explored the origin of money in our ancient past. And he discovered that money was initially invented as technology of cooperation. So it was something that gives our kind, human species, evolutionary advantage that other animals don't have. And it basically he recognized that the early forms of money, like shells of clams and wampums, they solve the risk of cheating in exchange of favor. So, for instance, when we try to interact with someone and then exchange goods and services and stuff, but if we cannot really exchange at the same time simultaneously, if the favor is not returned at the same time, there's always a risk, right, that you might not get that, what is promised. So the Zavo drawing from the insight of evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins, who described money as the tool for a token of delayed reciprocal altruism. So that really understanding of that, the invention of money, that is deeply rooted to who we are as human beings. That really changed the way I look at this, the invention of money, and so that really took me to my journey to a next level at the deeper way. And that, the journey really still continues.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned a little bit that you are you very focusing on the freedom of speech and also free internet.
Mm-hmm.
And then also in your profile you said that you are a liberation psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
So which one came first? Were you liberation psychologist at?
Yeah, I was trained as a liberation psychologist, and I was very much interested in social justice. Wanted to find a way to mitigate oppression in our society. So that's kind of how I got into studying liberation psychology. But then what I found is, in my school, I mean, in university, for instance, we sat down and then make a circle and then debate about how to liberate, basically, how to liberate people, how to, eliminate oppression in our society. And then we talked about this hierarchy, hierarchy of of the hierarchical nature of institution that create racism, that create, oppression, right, basically. And then I find that we just end up just always talking and talking and talking, and we always talk about who is on the top of this hierarchy, the white man being on the top, and next is white women, and the next is, and then having the Native Americans at the very bottom, for instance. And then the discussion always evolve, and then sometimes it's become a heated argument about who is they really debate about, oh no, white women to be the below, lesbian women or that kind of things. And then at the end of the day, I find nothing happening, that there's no viable means for us to change society. And then racism, and then militarism, and poverty, and then all, economic injustice, justice continues on. So I was very much frustrated with this kind of, doing activism in ivory tower, so to speak, inside ivory tower. And so that's when I found WikiLeaks in 2010, and what WikiLeaks has done in empowering people around the world and bringing back history into the hands of ordinary people, and the ordinary people around the world started to actually take the path of self-determination, and that was very empowering to me. And then I recognized the power of internet to actually democratize, really create a democracy. And then, so that's how I kind of got inspired. And then I became more interested in what's happening on the internet than studying liberation psychology, So then, of course, I found Bitcoin on that journey. So yeah, so studying liberation psychology came first, and the Bitcoin basically help, I can do liberation psychology in action with Bitcoin. Like it's not, liberation psychology became no longer a theory. It's become, I can practice it, put into practice with Bitcoin. And without fighting, without trying to change the world, simply just accepting Bitcoin, using Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin. And I can be a part of a change, creating change that I wish to see in the world. So that's kind of how everything came about.
That's very interesting. I mean, of course, like Bitcoin has this libertarian aspect on it, like like how Satoshi Nakamoto, when they first, when he or she or they created the Genesis block,
Right.
like he put the headline of the
Right,
Chancellor
exactly.
bailout, right?
Right.
And then so maybe I want to also know from your point of
Mhm.
view, like how Bitcoin can be the vehicle for liberation.
So
Can you explain to the
yeah, so
audience?
one thing that I started to understand is that so we, human species, I mean, all creatures live within uh, within the laws of nature. And what I mean by laws of nature is that there are certain principles working in natural world, right? And then there are certain principles working in the universe. So there are laws of the universe, and then there are laws of nature. So that for instance, the laws of gravity apply to everyone equally, right? And then there is also the natural world goes through seasons, or we are affected by biorhythm, that everybody has this internal clock, so to speak, right? So all the creatures are governed in some way. They're governed by this nature's law. So then, so and upon which is the interesting thing that we humans have something. We humans are given mind, a kind of like a sense of ego, a sense of self, and that is something that is very unique to our species, I think. And with this, we are given, I think, a certain kind of faculty that allow us to have freedom, the freedom that other animals don't have. And then humans can live within the time and the space. The space, we species share the certain, what do you call it, the dimension of space, this, that is held by space and time. And then we have capacity to invent tools and communicate through language. So that this freedom, I recognize that this is the law of freedom. The freedom is deeply coded in our DNA. So what's interesting is, as Nick Szabo basically pointed out, the origin of money is basically money is invented as a way to help species to cooperate, and instead of resorting into violence. So we can solve problems through peaceful means rather than just fighting and attacking each other and kind of acting like animals, right? Or mammals. Maybe animals behave better than us sometimes. So that the idea is that this law of freedom is already given to us. That is a very natural thing that yet we somehow, that this mind that we are given, mind we are endowed by a creator, that out of which we kind of created our own laws. So we created this kingdom of man. So to just just to explain that first, like, we live in a natural world, right? We share space and time and the earth with other creatures, plants, animals, and on top of it, the human built the kingdom of man, a kingdom that is specific to man. And somehow what I found is the laws that are built, the laws that the man created on top of nature's law are misaligned currently. So when we build the civilization that is misaligned with the underlying principle of nature, of course the civilization become, insecure in the end. It's not funded on a secure foundation, right? Built on the secure foundation. So then it become vulnerable. And it doesn't really, it's not, I think, a superior form of building a civilization. So we have to build our civilization upon laws of nature. And the more I understand Bitcoin, I recognize that Bitcoin is aligned with laws of nature. And when I say laws of nature specifically, I'm talking about the understanding of human nature. So of course, the Bitcoin uses, Bitcoin mining is working through the laws of thermodynamics, laws of physics, right? But most importantly, for me, what's significant is that at the core of Bitcoin is the economic incentive and the game theory. And then what these are based on is the knowledge of evolutionary psychology. And that is the evolutionary psychology is biological approach to study human behavior. And so based on the real knowledge of human, who we are, Satoshi built Bitcoin. And then with it, the Satoshi found a way to have the system, have money being aligned with the laws of nature. I can explain more, but it's kind of complex. I think the best way maybe to help you understand is that in the current existing financial system, it's very much closed system, and what it does is that, okay, maybe before I get into this, I have to kind of explain other things first. Okay, so one of the things that set men apart from other mammals is, as I said, is a brain that we are given, maybe more sophisticated brain than other animals, right? And that we have this ability to think and ability to self-reflect. And then the most importantly, we have the self-awareness. We have consciousness. We can say, I am, right? We can look at the mirror and recognize that's us, right? The individual can have individual consciousness. And then out of which, what came is the impulse for progress. The humans are, I think, the unique species that who want to improve themselves. So if we look at the animals, right, dogs are not gonna kind of sit down and say, I wanted to improve myself. I wanted to, become better dog. Humans, on the other hand, humans want to somehow improve themselves. That we are creatures who don't just remain to be creatures, but who aspire to become a creator, aspire to become at least co-creator, right? Wanted to emerge from this state of unconsciousness and the state that we are being created to moving into, the state that we want to participate somehow in actively in the process of evolution, or we wanted to engage with the environment and create progress. And so that we have innately this impulse for civilization. And then the money is really aligned with, the invention of money is really aligned with the impulse within ourselves to create civilization. And for that, one of the thing is that we created, another important thing is that we created religion, we created God, the moral structure. The development of morality is something also unique to our species. So that we not only want to progress, we created through our abstract mind, we created moralism, like we created God, we created religion. We are the only species who practice faith when other animals don't have religions, they don't believe in, they don't have faith, right? So then what happened is the current financial system operates, what underlies basically the current financial system is the moral code. So the current money, the fiat money, is a political money. That's basically what it is. And so that what it does is that it's judges basically the certain aspect of ourselves to be good or bad. And then so it's a closed system that its security model is based on excluding bad actors. So whoever, whatever the kind of behaviors that those who control the system deem to be negative or deemed to be bad, all they do is that they just restrict their access to the network. So it's very much kind of a very simplistic way of building security, right? So instead of, so they just have a list of things, a list of behavior, or a list of organizations. They create a list of organizations that they want to bun they want to center, and then they would just apply the pressure and then just deny their access. And then, of course, what guides this, as I said, the underlying, what underlies this system is moral code. So that, it's basically the moral dualistic morality of good and evil, Christianity or Judaism, in some ways and that is created through this mind, that we have this limited mind in some ways that tend to see things as, in polarity, tend to see things in duality, and that is the function of our mind. So the limitation of our mind in some ways has contributed to creating this the system of finance that we have. And then what Satoshi did, on the other hand, is that Satoshi basically created money that is apolitical, that is money that is free from moral hazard. And so that's the revolutionary, that's very revolutionary, because then what happened is we can, we can align ourselves with morality inherent within us. So we, being a part of nature, and nature itself, as I came to understand through my research and my personal experience, nature itself has morality. We humans don't think that is, and we like to kind of, create our own sense of morality and then act according to it, to regulate our behavior based on that structure of morality that we create in our head. But actually we are naturally equipped with a sense of morality. All we have to do is to just cultivate it. So then we can learn to align ourselves with that morality. And the morality is active, is manifested through all creatures, actually. And that all creatures are governed by nature's law, which is instinct. So that because they are following the instinct, and that there are certain laws that apply to them, and then other animals, they cannot go beyond the nature's law. They are bound by them. They don't have freedom. So that the lion eating rabbit, for instance, but there is and then the law of the food chain, for instance, so that the animals are kind of designated to eat certain animals, animals, and then they don't eat more than they need, so that somehow the nature find a way to maintain its own ecosystem without kind of applying pressure and stuff, allowing all the creatures to act just according to how they are programmed, right? But then we humans, we don't. We are given given the freedom, so we are kind of given the opportunity to get outside of the nature's law or nature's providence, even though that freedom is an illusion in some ways. It's because it's allowed by nature herself. But does it make sense? Or
yeah,
it's a very complex. Complex topic in some.
Because morality is very subjective, and then I really like what you said, that human has this illusion that they can somehow decide which one is good and bad, kind of like that, right?
Right, but the morality, meaning that because of the animals are driven by instinct in some ways, and then within the instinct, I think nature put the safeguard for to protect her creatures. So that's why the lion, doesn't eat more than what they need, and then lion need to eat rabbit, and rabbit need to eat carrot, and then it's part of their nature that it's a way for them to survive. But lion would never be able to engage in an act of evil, right? Because them killing rabbit is not an act of evil at all. It's just the lions acting out of instinct. But the humans, we having this freedom that we are given, kind of like a possibility to create evil in the world. That the humans are only one, in my opinion, that can commit evil act. But then I think that within ourselves there is innate morality, and that it comes as a form of intuition, and each person is given that it's in us, but we have to we need to be able to cultivate it. And the current system, what it does is that it's created this abstract sense of moralism, and then they hand down the telling people what is right, what is wrong, and then preventing each person from connecting with our own inherent morality within. So that ultimately what Bitcoin enables is moral autonomy. That's how I see it. And we talked about individual sovereignty, right? Bitcoin enables financial freedom, and Bitcoin enables individual sovereignty. But I think ultimately, we could go beyond, the individual sovereignty, and that Bitcoin allow us to create ethical individualism or the moral autonomy, and give us opportunity to explore out of ourselves really our own conscience, basically, to develop our own conscience, so that's the ultimate goal of Bitcoin. But the way the Satoshi made it possible, created this way, the money that is free from moral hazard, is that, so instead of compared to the current financial system, as I said, that is the corrosive system that it's trying to exclude the bad actors, right? Bad actors ever coming into the network in the first place. Satoshi, allow the all aspect of ourselves to come in, and just to go back a little bit, I have to actually address this issue. So now what we see with this current financial system is that the current system that is based on excluding selfishness, or excluding what we think of bad or criminal behavior, basically the dark side of man, so to speak, that made our system to be very insecure. And as we have seen, around the world, that this massive corruption of government and the financial institutions. And what happened is, as basically shunning away the selfish part of ourselves, that doesn't just, but by rejecting them, we are not actually making any solutions, because these aspects of ourselves that we negate, we reject, that they just still continue to exist. And they become more hostile and more cunning and more, deceptive and clever. And as a result, what happened is that the selfish part of ourselves just took the upper hand and just took over, the whole financial system, so that they are the one, who are selfish. They are the one who actually write laws and decide, and regulate themselves, So this is not the way to account for our, our own action, right? Our selfish behavior, or to bring accountability to our government or the financial system. That's not the way to go. So instead of what Satoshi did was just to accept that everything that is us is just everything is just part of us. Selfishness, greed. So Bitcoin really encourages, Bitcoin system encourages greed. That's all just a part of us. So Satoshi brought these part of ourselves that are neglected, that are rejected from the system, back into a transparent network. And here, the method of transparency is extremely important. That the allowing all selfish part to come in to play in a network, but in a transparent network, and then setting the reward for the participant playing by the rules higher than the value of attacking the network. The Satoshi created the economic incentive to guide the primitive part of ourselves to act in a more civilized way. And there is no pressure being applied in this process. So instead of just simply saying, okay, I'm going to punish you, you just don't act selfishly. If you don't try to commit crimes, don't try to, steal money, I'm going to just exclude you from this system and you cannot ever be a part of it. right, part of the system. Instead of doing this phenotype approach, Satoshi said, come on, come in, join this network, the old part of ourselves, especially the primitive part of ourselves that need nurturing, right? So that the whole idea of civilization is that the primitive part of ourselves, it's like if you if you relate to a 3-year-old child, who sometimes acts like animals, who is primitive, who still hasn't matured, he's a child. Instead of punishing him to be who he is, what we need is to nurturing, right? To understand and allowing him to be who he is, so that we can guide him to become, learn to become an adult, and to learn to have a more the behavior that is civil, right? So that's what Satoshi did. Satoshi brought back, the part of ourselves that have been rejected by this civilization back into a network, and allowing us to engage with it in a more meaningful way. And so I think it's very, very significant, and it's allow us to create the tool of cooperation, and that we can we can actually in some, I think that the Bitcoin is a tool that allow us to go back to nature, allow us to go back to nature's providence without humans losing freedom. So it's not about us regressing back to this state where we are innocent or ignorant, but it's about actually by bringing knowledge we acquired, technology, and the capacity for love that is built upon our freedom, that we actually can return to nature and then add, contribute to adding our moral value. I mean, that's, as I see it, it's the purpose of Bitcoin ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but this is very fascinating. Like like it's all about it. It's. I think it's very cool to see that just by applying the thermodynamic and physics in Bitcoin mining and proof of work, and then also acknowledging the human psychology, like Satoshi Nakamoto actually create a really good system to
Right.
incentivize people. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's. I think Satoshi really. I mean, at the core of Bitcoin's economic incentive is, as I said, it's the knowledge of evolutionary psychology, and then the Richard Dawkins' idea of selfish genes, and Dawkins, he's an evolutionary biologist. He renewed Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection by basically putting genes at the center of evolution. So instead of individuals, but he created this gene-ized view of evolution. So and then Dawkins basically describes that genes are like, we are like surviving machines. We humans are surviving machines, and the genes are just kind of like just try to just keep perpetuating themselves, and so that's all they do in some ways. And I think it's kind of hard for us to kind of look at it that way, like we don't want to see ourselves as like surviving machines, and just we were based on self, we are programmed to act out of self-interest. But it's very important for us to understand the foundation of ourselves, whether we like it or not, and to confront the reality of it, so then we can actually build a better system. So that, I mean, before I found Bitcoin, and studying psychology, of course, I come from the tradition of depth psychology, and I more had a naive kind of view of man, that men are more like angelic beings, and we are compassionate, empathic, and we are nice, and we love each other and all that stuff. But that's good, that's part of us, of course. But we also have to recognize that we are also part of animals too, and that when it's come to survival, that even somebody who claim themselves to be like saint-like, they would act, selfishly, and that's just the, I think, reality that we have to face. So then we can actually have a more balanced view of humanity, not just one-sidedness of being good and nice, but yeah, we are competitive, we are aggressive, we can do horrible things, we are nasty, So and somehow to reconcile that paradox or hold that paradox within ourselves, and then building upon the foundation of our selfish genes, then we can create a system that allow us to cultivate a capacity of love, and then when we achieve that love become, I think much more valuable and real, because it's really funded on who we are, and not just on the surface level of, oh, I'm just loving everybody, and not really based on reality or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
yeah, this is very interesting. And so, since Bitcoin is aligned with law of nature,
Hmm.
and we have also some, yeah, you've seen in the news that through Bitcoin mining, people claim that Bitcoin mining is actually uh, create bad environments, like consume a lot of energy, right? Like this, there's this like. So what do you think? Like, do you think Bitcoin, like while working with nature and then helping, also like facilitating human greed, will that create a negative effect on the environment, or this
No,
is
I
just
think
like
that
another fud?
I mean, first of all, this whole, this idea that the Bitcoin mining is bad for the environment, that's just propaganda. It's not based on the real information that we now know. There's a data that shows that the Bitcoin mining, that over, I think 70% or large part of Bitcoin mining is done by renewable energy. And that trend continues because, uh, the cheaper the energy is, I mean, the mining become profitable. So I think that the Bitcoin mining, if anything, is actually setting the trend, to move our society to using the clean energies, right? So it's just and then those who actually say that the Bitcoin is bad for the environment, they are the people who defend the fiat system, and many people in the Bitcoin system actually jumped in to combat this narrative, this false narrative, and letting them know that this existing financial system, that they actually take more energies, right? And even just like a Christmas tree light in December, that itself, like for 3 months or something, they don't, the people who criticize Bitcoin mining, the use of energy, that they are the ones who really use the Christmas light and the things, and then that is less than Bitcoin miners use or whatever. So it's just it's just a misinformation in my opinion. And if as I see it, the Bitcoin eventually connected with solar energy, and and then the existing financial system is never gonna get off the oil and coal and
Hmm.
these energies. And so I see, I'm more optimistic about Bitcoin system.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
especially like the energy that is being put for the military, right? Like to
Oh,
protect the
exactly. And
fiat.
then yeah, and the Bitcoin does this. I mean, this transformation of the energy usage, Bitcoin does it in a decentralized way, not like the what we have in the U.S. that the Democratic Party is pushing forward something called the Green Deal policy, right? So that's a kind of top-down, centralized way of transforming the use of energy. And instead of that centralized, coordinated effort, Bitcoin does it in a decentralized way. So then in that process, no one is forced to do things that they don't want to do, right? It's based on voluntary association and mutual aid, and people who see value and benefit from that transition to using renewable energy would choose to do so, right? So I think the Bitcoin's approach is much more that preserves civil liberties basically, which is very important. And yeah, so it's a very much more innovative approach than what the
Mm-hmm.
government is trying to do.
So now let's talk about a little bit about the future, or at least
Mhm.
in terms of government and politics. So how do you think Bitcoin can make a better politics or better governments or better democracy?
Well, Bitcoin, I think, really, I mean, the construct of modern nation state is, again, it comes from our limited mind. It's a kind of order system, in my opinion, and it needed as a part of, I think, as a part of process of human evolution. And when I say, by the way, when I say human evolution, I don't mean exclusively biological process of evolution that is put forward by Charles Darwin. That I see it as psychologist, I see it as evolution of consciousness. I think that we are moving. We as a species are evolving, and then the protocol, the development of Bitcoin protocol is actually we are interacting with the protocol. So it's not like the Bitcoin out there that exists independently from us. Our interaction with this protocol somehow changes protocol, and then the Bitcoin also changes us. So that something I observe something something amazing happening in that interaction, that we humans are evolving as well, and that and then we are going beyond the nation state. And then what does it look like? And it's going back to what I said about individual sovereignty and moral autonomy, that I think in the end, in the future, that we all become sovereign individuals, that we regulate ourselves by aligning ourselves with the laws of nature within. And for that, I think that many people, I think Bitcoiners kind of, I see them kind of talking about how Bitcoin changed their lives. And I saw the other day, the Bitcoin magazine tweeting that question, how has Bitcoin changed your life? And many people responding to the tweet. And then that was very interesting to see their responses, right? And they were like, oh, I became like this. And the changes are profound. It's not just like, oh, I became more rich. It's not nothing like that. It really changed profoundly the way of life, and the way they look at the world, the way they relate to one another. And I think, and it's universal. It's very global. It doesn't really affect just as one nation, right? It affects everybody everybody all over the world. And then somehow I find that it's kind of creating a new network, and that's what Max Keiser and Stacy Halbert, they created this Orange Pill podcast, and they have this Telegram chat group, right? And then as I see it, it's like already there is new state, that the post Bitcoinization is happening in there, and that it's a like a new world. It's new, maybe kingdom of heaven, kingdom of God. The new world emerging, and that people are connecting with one another, that people who had no connection before, like you and I, for instance. I'm from Japan, I live in the US, but I'm originally from Japan, and you live in Indonesia. And what are the chances that we actually talk about Bitcoin or talk about something that we both care about in the way that we do now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that, of course, the internet allow us to do this, but internet is just restricted to the exchange of information, But then with Bitcoin, we can exchange values. We can invest into creating a certain kind of future. We can really take on a lot of, the possibilities are, I think, just limitless, right? Yeah. So I see that I think the nation state is gonna just crumble, and then for that we don't have to do anything. It's just gonna happen. I mean, Bitcoin simply is gonna accelerate, maybe, or make the process, less miserable, right? So I see very optimistic about our future because of Bitcoin, and many people say that the Bitcoin gives us hope, and I think yeah, Bitcoin really gives us hope. And as I said earlier, the protocol is evolving and we are evolving. And if you look at the Bitcoin ecosystem, I mean, we have this laser beam eyes that, I mean, it's just funny, like we somehow like our DNA got mutated or something. The Bitcoiners, we look different than other people on Twitter, who are not orange pilled. So yeah, so that's, yes, amazing things happening. And I'm just glad to be alive
Mm-hmm.
to in the world that the Bitcoin exists.
Yeah. And it's so funny, like, in Twitter, everyone always think like Bitcoiners are very like, like they're like the maxis, like, can be mean in Twitter, but in real life, they're really, really nice people.
Right. I mean, I love Bitcoiners. Bitcoiners, they are great, and I think that part of the reason that, they are great is that they are aligned, I think. They are aligned with who they are, aligned with their own nature. So they don't, try to be someone else other than, just being authentic. And that is, that is how we all should live. And
Yeah.
then now in our society, I mean, we all misaligned because the financial system, it has this, it's run by this moral code that creates this, duality of evil and good. And then they are the one who create, they are the one who say who is good and who is bad. And that's now creeped into Silicon Valley, social media tech giants like Twitter, so that they would say, oh, you're not supposed to say this, and I'm gonna just suspend your account. They are
Mm-hmm.
acting as God, basically, right? So Bitcoin really frees us from that false God, and then allow us, each of us, to become our own God. I mean, I'm not saying that in a narcissistic way. I think that we all are made in the image of God.
Mm-hmm.
But people who believe in the Bible maybe agree with me. And what Bitcoin does is that Bitcoin distributes gods so that we all can, become basically co-creator, and that
Yeah.
I am God in my universe, and I don't. I'm not God in your universe, but I am God in my universe, and I would regulate myself, and I respect you as part of the God, So that's, I think that's the individual sovereignty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So, before we close, what is your hope for Bitcoin in the future?
Hope for the Bitcoin, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Um, um, I, I, I don't have hope. I mean, I think that Bitcoin is larger. I see the Bitcoin is larger than any one of us. It's larger than, I mean, it's um, and I don't. I just, maybe I could just say I would learn to live according to Bitcoin standard, and that's how I'm gonna live my life from now on. And that's a process that I have to, it's not it's a process, and that I have to, Bitcoin inspired me to change my life. That the way I interact with other people, the way I form relationship with other people, and the way I look at myself, the way I look at the world. And the Bitcoin, invite us to live in a world that doesn't have uh, levers of control, in which everyone is made equal. And I strive to, yeah, practice that Bitcoin standard and live up to her standard, to become the person who respect other people as equal peers and relate to one another as equal peers. So I'm just simply humbled by Bitcoin, I think. And so hope for Bitcoin is, um, yeah, I just hope Bitcoin to continue to evolve, and inspire us. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Mm. Yeah, like I really like basically Bitcoin. Like you don't change Bitcoin, like Bitcoin kind of change us, and then
Right. Yeah.
that
That-
change is actually evolving us into a better person, basically, right?
exactly. Yeah. yeah, evolving as better person. And then again, that it's just whenever like I start to think about better person or I become a nice person, again, I have to check my brain, I check my mind, because that's again the mind created moralism. And anytime I have that, I'm disconnected from nature's law, that accept us simply as who we are, allow us to act authentically. And in when we act out of our authenticity, our act become graceful, right? Like when people trying to do nice things, trying to help, try to change the world, or try to be nice, it requires effort. So that effort actually get us out of the flow of nature, and that the nature really act gracefully. So when we act out of what we like, or what we love to do, or what we intuitively think, just without having ego, or mind interfering with our behavior, basically, that's when our act become effortless, and we can become graceful. And the result of this, creates kindness, or politeness, or what people outside watching our behavior would maybe would describe us as, oh, you are a nice person. You know what I mean? So niceness or politeness is, I think, the outcome of us just following our moral intuition within.
Mm.
So that again, that it's a Bitcoin. Yeah, it's Bitcoin really hold me accountable. That's maybe a better way of saying it. It's just allowing me to hold my ego in check. Um, yeah.
That's very good. That's a very good
Right. So,
wrap up.
and I think that the part of it is that's why I think people have a hard time understanding Bitcoin, because they try to understand Bitcoin. And I also, fall into this trap, is that I try to help people understand Bitcoin, and I get frustrated. But it's not that, we have to simply let Bitcoin reveal itself to us. So, when we stop making effort to understand it, when we let go of this urge to understand the Bitcoin, then eventually Bitcoin would reveal itself to us. Then, we understand it, without maybe our mind.
Yeah, because in the beginning, like, you choose to buy Bitcoin, you choose to hold Bitcoin, right? No one,
Right,
it's not
right.
based on force, right? So
Nobody is forced to buy Bitcoin. I mean, the fiat currency is backed by men with guns. I mean, we are forced to, use U.S. dollars, or the fiat money, and then we didn't even choose. I mean, I was born in Japan, so by choice. I mean, I didn't have a choice to be born in Japan. At birth, like, I was just meant to use yen, Japanese yen. So we didn't have a choice of currency, and then now Bitcoin gives us a choice, right? And as I said, if the financial system and the money, what is embedded in money is moral code, the conception of God that those in power wish to enact, then we don't have freedom of religion. We are subjected to their God.
yeah.
And then our God, like, U.S. money, U.S. fiat, I mean, dollars. If it's a God, what kind of a God is this, right? And then politicians, I mean, they, the president, after the remarks that they say, like, often, God bless America, right? So, I mean, and then they have this reference to Christianity, kind of God bless America, and like, so God is, of course, involved in nation state. And what kind of a God is U.S. government? I mean, the fiat money has, the U.S. dollar has. I mean, it's a God that likes war. So it's basically, and then make all other people in the third world country to be enemies. Anybody who challenge the U.S. government to be defined as enemies.
Yeah.
So we don't want to have that kind of God. I want to have a peaceful God. So yeah, we can just opt out from worshiping that God that we didn't even choose. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Because in the paper bill, there's also like
Oh,
there is a
exactly.
there is a writing about, like, in God we trust, right? So
Exactly, God with trust. I mean, I don't trust this God. It's just you make us trust. And now we have a choice to opt out from
yeah.
worshiping this God. And yeah, so, and the Bitcoin is awesome. Bitcoin Bitcoin is God, that nature's God that allow us, treat us equally and create peace. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Mhm.
right. Well, I think we are in the end of the this podcast. My mind is blown away from all of this information that you just gave to me, and I really want to love to talk more about it, but maybe we can do it in another episode. And maybe for the last thing, how can people support you? How can people contact you if they want to, talk to you? Yeah.
Mhm. So I have a website, nozomihayase.com. So it's my name, nozomihayase.com. And then you can follow me on Twitter, nozomimagine. That's my Twitter handle. So yeah,
So yeah,
and
it's
I really enjoyed having conversation with you, Dia.
yeah, it's really fun.
I
And Nozomi also write a lot of yeah, sorry.
mean, I'm very honored to be the first female guest
Oh
on.
yeah. I've been waiting for like who should I invite, and then after I saw you on the To the Moon series by Stacy and Max Keiser, I'm just like, okay, I have to bring Nozomi to the show. So
Thank
yeah,
you
it's
for
been a
having me.
very pleasure. Thank you so much for to come and then spend your time and talk to us. And I hope you have a great day and good luck with all the writings. And yeah, please everyone follow Nozomi on Twitter and also check her work in nozomihayase.com. So
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, Nozomi. Yeah, have a great day. Thank you for listening to the My Bitcoin story. Stay tuned for more episodes and click that follow button.